Hello guys, this is Motion Design School, and welcome to the third lesson. On previous lesson we've learned how to work with shape layers, and now we are going to talk about shape modifiers or operands. Shape modifiers are effects which can be applied only to shapes inside our shape layers. To add modifier to the shape or group, just select it inside Contents group and click Add. And select the modifier from this block of the list. For example, zigzag. Without selecting any shape, the modifier will be applied to all elements in Contents group and will be placed below them. All modifiers works according to hierarchy of objects inside Contents group. It will be applied to all layers which are above it. For example, if we move zigzag above rectangle, it will be applied only to ellipse. Let's have a closer look at each modifier. We already know about the first one from the previous lesson. It's merge paths. It's needed in case we want to merge, add, subtract, intersect, exclude intersections of the shapes, like Pathfinder in Illustrator. One important thing to know about subtract operation is that it subtracts from the layer which is the first in stack all the layers below it. For example, if we duplicate rectangle, you can see both rectangles are subtracted from the ellipse shape. The second modifier is offset path. It offsets the path. Using this modifier you can place the stroke inside shape or outside it and easily control the value of this offset. It is also possible to round the path corners. And the interesting thing about this modifier is that if we draw a straight line, it will create a stroke around the line, and that's pretty cool. Another simple modifier is pucker and bloat. It allows to arc the path of shape inside or outside it. For example, we can create a star from this rectangle or clover leaf by changing its amount value. You also can get some abstract things by experimenting with its single parameter. And the next is round corners. I think that you already guessed it. It rounds corners of the path, if the corner is not smooth. And as you can see, this modifier don't affect the points with Bezier direction lines. And let's have a look at one of the most popular shape modifiers, is trim paths. With its help, you can animate the start and end point of the line and create a line drawing animation. It has three main parameters: start, controls the start point of the path, and end of it. The next parameter is offset. It controls placement of line segment limited by start and end parameters. Let's create a simple animation. Animate the end parameter, move approximately to this moment of time, create a keyframe, and move to frame 0 and set value to 0. So that we created this simple line drawing animation. Copy these keyframes and paste in start parameter. Offset them a little bit. And now we have linear preloader animation. Let's make it more interesting and edit speed graph. Select all keyframes, press F9 to ease them, go to Graph Editor and select these 2 points and drag them to the left. Good. If individually, it will draw the path of shape according to layers taken order, from top to bottom of list. So let's place ellipse 2 below. Also, trim paths draws the line from the first vertex of the path, if offset parameter value is 0. And we can set this first vertex. It's important, the shape path must be converted to Bezier path. Select the path, select the vertex you want to make first, right-click, select Shape and Mask Paths, and here set first vertex. And now trim path draws the line starting from this point. Now let's change the first vertex of the second ellipse. You can also easily change the direction of animation. For that you need to reverse path direction. That's no problem. Select path and reverse its direction by clicking this button with arrows. So that we have this kind of interesting animation. If we delete keyframes from start and end properties and just change the offset parameter, we will get this kind of infinite movement. The next one is twist. It twists the shape. You can control its angle and the position of center around which this twisting will happen. Using this modifier, you can create some kind of hypnotic things or portals, like here on this animation. The next two interesting modifiers create line deformation, mid-zigzag and wiggle paths. We can adjust the wave height and their quantity, and of course choose the type of wave corner. And wiggle paths creates randomized animated waves on the path. You can control the amplitude, detail, choose the type of corners, and adjust frequency. To disable animation, just set the wiggles per second to 0. It's possible to control spatial and temporal phase of the animation as well. And let's have a look at another one of the most frequently used modifiers. It's repeater. Allows to create copies of objects. If you place it in contents group or shape group, it will create copies of each object placed above it. In its settings, we can adjust the quantity of copies, offset them, and in its transform settings, we can change the position, scale, and other properties of copies. Now let's create a row of circles. Set the copies amount to 6, and in position property of repeater, set X value to something about this. It's really cool that we can add to one shape any number of different or same modifiers. So let's add another repeater which will duplicate created rows in a vertical direction. Add repeater, set the amount of copies, go to Transform tab, select the position property, set the X value to 0, and adjust the Y value. Good, now we have an array of circles. And the last really interesting modifier is Wiggle Transform. Wiggle Transform creates random changes of shape or group properties. Let's apply it to the layer with repeater. Place it below all repeaters, so that it will affect each copy. In its transform group, you can choose which properties will be changed and adjust the amplitude. And using these settings above, we can change the frequency and set the correlation. If its value equals 100, all figures will move simultaneously, if 0, as randomly as possible. For calculating the random, you can adjust random seed parameter value. It's a pretty simple example of what we can create using a combination of repeater and wiggle transform. You can create much more interesting things. Let's apply modifiers in real task. Now we are going to work with these three scenes and create different types of weapon using shape modifiers. So, open the attached to the lesson After Effects file, open the first composition, it's Shooting Blaster. We have created it with trim paths and repeater modifiers. Let's understand how it works and recreate it. Open Composition Main 1, it contains prepared for animation layers. Select the shoot layer and add trim paths to it. Now let's animate the start and end properties. Select the end property, move 5 frames forward and set the key with value 100. Set the value 0 in the beginning of the timeline. Copy these keyframes and paste them to start. Offset them a little bit. Move the layer to the right moment of time. And that's it. Animation using trim path and repeater. For this, draw a vertical line in the center of composition. It's really important to draw it from the center, because then we will rotate the copies using repeater, and by default, it does this around the center of composition. Add trim path modifier and animate it like this. Now add repeater. Set the amount of copies to 6. Open transform group and set the position to 0, 0. And the rotation to 60 degrees to make the copies placed with the same intervals. Now outburst is done. Place it near blister. Move this layer on a timeline to the time when shot is happening. Place it on the target at the moment laser hits it. Nice, and one more thing, target should die after the hit. For that, select the target layer and open Effects tab. Here we prepared a little effect called Dead. Create keyframe on the value at the moment while the target is still alive, so checkbox is unchecked, and set the value after hit to On, so the target is dead. Check it? Nice. The first scene is recreated, let's move to another one. Electricity is killing our target, or maybe reanimating it. It was done with the zigzag and wiggle path modifiers. The base of this scene is placed in main 2 composition. Select the shoot layer, open its contents group and select Shape 1, add wiggle path. Set its parameters in following way. Size 30, detail 80, and wiggles per second to 20. Cool. And the one line looks a little boring, so let's create additional wiggling lines around the target. Just draw a spline on the same layer, like this. This line doesn't have to be perfect, but the bezier points should be placed approximately with the same interval. Make it dash line. And that's it. Copy the wiggle path from Shape 1 and paste it to Shape 2. As you can see, it applied in quite strange way. That's because parameter detail, which is responsible for amount of waves, calculates between each 2 points of Bezier path. Now adjust the value of this parameter to make it look good. Adjust the offset value in stroke options of this shape as well. And edit the path a little bit in order to remove appearing stroke flickering. And that's it! Now create wiggling lines around the blaster in the same way. Let's create an amperage direction lines using zigzag. For this, draw another line on a new layer, add dashes to the stroke, and animate its offset. Add zigzag modifier, and set it up in following way. Size 5, and ridges per segment 35. Fine, but not good enough. Let's make a target wiggling. For this we will animate position property. Create the first keyframe in the beginning of the timeline. Move 2 frames forward and move the target rightwards a little bit. Once again 2 frames further and paste the first keyframe. Now loop this animation using a simple expression. With Hold Alt button, click on the clock's near position property so that we open the expression field and write loop out, opening and closing bracket. That's it. In the same way, create a blaster wiggling, but with rotation property. Now let's add the hair animation. Open the contents group of target layer and find hair group. As you can see, hair was also done with zigzag modifier. Change points type to corner and create loop animation of size property in the same way with target wiggling. And the second scene is also recreated. Let's switch to the third. In the third composition, we will be interested not in shot animation, but in smoke, which is created with the help of 4 modifiers: repeater, wiggle transform, merge paths, and round corners. Draw in the center of composition a rectangle of size 150 by 30. Duplicate it. Change its size to 45 by 30. Offset it 29 pixels upwards to make it intersect the first one a little bit. Solo layer for more comfortable work. And now add the repeater. Set the amount of copies to 60. Go to its transform group and change the position Y parameter value to -59. And change the scale property a little bit. Set the offset value to -5. After that, add wiggle transform. Place it below all repeaters so that it will affect each copy. Set the wiggles per second to half and its position x offset amplitude to -20. Watch the result. Dynamics is pretty nice. Now add merge paths modifier to combine everything in one path. Good. And let's add round corners. Set the radius to 15 as our rectangles has height of 30. Place the smoke behind the target. And animate offset parameter of repeater. Looks good in general, but we can place the smoke a little higher and increase the X position value of wiggle transform. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's remove the stroke from smoke and paint it in gray color. And the third scene is recreated as well. Hope you realize the great potential of shape modifiers. You can create really interesting things with them. Your homework is to recreate this simple shape animation. And for those of you who will find this task simple, homework is to recreate this animation. Source is attached to the lesson. So good luck and see you on the next lesson.